2018 was submitted for the July meeting. Han reviewed the site plan, and in a memorandum dated July 10th listed a number of engineering issues. The planning board held a public hearing on June 6th and July 11th. The action is a type 2 action under SECRA. Now therefore be resolved that the planning board grants the application for site development plan approval of the improvements reflected in the drawing entitled Raby Residence, prepared by Keene Copeland and Gregory Engineers, subject to compliance with the 11 items listed in Han's July 10th, 2018 memorandum, and subject to receiving a variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals for coverage.
Sure, thank you. May I have a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
In a second? Any further comment? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Oh, that's
Here's his.
Next item is 95 Riverview Road. This is number 6.
Lawyer, in the first row. Yeah.
what issue?
Good evening. My name is Lou DeMacy. I'm the architect. With me is Mike McGarvey. He's the engineer on the project. What we're looking to do is create a second floor on an existing home. It happens to be non-conforming.
Excuse me, I think you should take the microphone with you because they may not pick up.
So what's happening with this lot is it's a corner lot, so we have 2 front yard setbacks. So there is a variance that we're seeking for this side yard or this front yard. And then we're also increasing the garage a little bit on that side. So there are calculations showing that we are asking for a variance or seeking for a variance, but we are in front of the planning board tonight just to get some feedback from you and also hopefully move ahead to the zoning board of appeals. I'm not sure if there's any questions that I can answer, but we did receive the comments and we will address them as we can.
Any comments from any board members?
Just curious about the landscaping plan.
Landscaping plan, we need to improve upon it. There's a plan. I didn't get a chance to review it, but I will take a look and provide feedback and comments to the landscape architect.
Okay, according to the engineer's comments, I guess it was in his memo, comment number 1, it says the allowable existing and proposed FAR values are 3,566 square feet. That's allowable. The existing is 1,872 square feet, and the proposed is 3,868 square feet. So, according to my calculations, you could actually construct a house of you could construct another 1,700 square feet almost and be within the permitted FAR. Why do you need a variance for this? Why are you going for an additional over 300 square feet more than what is permitted?
Basically, for ease of construction. If we're going to build on top of the existing second floor without pushing it back or setting it back, it just creates more structure that I need to worry about. It's something that we can look into, but we needed to get a variance for the setbacks, so I thought to present the best house to the client, that's what we would ask for. It's not substantial. It's 300 square feet. It's the size of a garage, basically, a one-car garage.
But I think I've driven up there, and going up Riverview Road, as you get to the stop sign at Irving Place and Riverview Road, you are looking right at that house. That house is out in the open. Every other house there is screened by substantial landscaping, and it's also set back farther from the road than this particular house. I think if you look even on your aerial photo, if you take a look at it, the house that we're talking about, the house right next door, the front yard of that house actually ends at the backyard of the house that's being that you're
Understood.
looking at.
And
Plus it's a substandard lot, it's only 14,000 square feet, and it's a 20,000 square foot lot, minimum size.
Understood.
I think you really have to look at this and see, you have to, as far as I'm concerned, you really have to bring this down. I don't see the need for a variance here. I think you should be looking at trying you could build 90% more than the square footage you have now and still be within compliance with the zoning in terms of FAR.
But I would have to set back the house to make it comply. I would have to set back the house on this side to make it comply with the zoning, for the setbacks.
I don't follow you. I mean, the house is already there.
Correct.
First floor is
I'm
already
building
there.
on top of an existing wall that's here. To add a second floor, it increases the non-compliance, and I would need to go for a variance for that. That's why we're going for a variance.
Well, why not look at other ways of handling this that, in terms of the design, that you would come in within the FAR?
That's something I'll look into, yeah.
Okay? 'Cause
It's just-
I think you really should. I mean, it's just that, two things, there's several things. One, the house is very visible as you drive up Riverview Road.
Because it's on a corner lot.
Understood, but if you look at the other houses around it, they're all set back considerably farther than this house.
Again, because it's a corner lot.
No, not because it's a corner lot, it's because it's the way the house was constructed at the time. I mean, I'm sure this house predates the current zoning,
And that's part of the reason for the
okay?
variance.
But it's also on a substandard lot. And so it's just a thing that, I think you need to explain why you need to get variance for FAR on a lot where you could build a house 90% larger than that's there,
I would look into that.
okay?
Yep.
And then whatever you do, I think you do need to improve the landscaping around the corner from Irving Place onto Riverview Road, because it is, as I said, as you drive up that road, you're just looking right at that.
Understood.
All the other houses are set back farther and have a major landscaping in front of them.
I'll look into it.
Okay.
Thank you for your comment.
Sure. Any other comments from any of the board? I think that was it.
Great.
Doug, Ed, any other comments?
So would you like to see us again?
Yes, I
Okay.
think I would. I'd like to see you take a look at it and see what you can do to bring the square footage, the volume down to get closer to the FAR
Okay.
that's required.
But we're still going to seek a variance for,
Well, you need a variance for coverage.
no, for
The setback.
the
For the setback.
Okay. Yeah.
Because the house is already there.
coverage, yeah. Yeah, great. Thank you.
Okay?
We gotta hammer down coverage too, so it might be easier just when you get it, send it to me. That way we can check it early.
Sounds good.
Have to-
Go back and forth.
Yeah.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is 2018-05, 26 Lewis Road, Emily and Benjamin Burrow.
Hi. Hi, guys. John Malone, First Morn Architecture, representing Benjamin and Emily Burley. So we are back tonight picking up comments from previous meetings. We were hoping to pursue that we were close enough to request a conditional approval tonight for any open items. But if the board is okay, I'd like to go through the comments that were presented, just make sure that we understand everything that was indicated here.
Well, I think there were a number of, well, plan engineering responded to all the comments regarding the wetland permit, correct, Doug? And you had no problem with the issues on the wetland. And I also noticed on here, John, that you also reduced the size or the width of the I guess, the parking area, the driveway in front of the garage.
Right.
Which I appreciate that. And then also, I think you also had a comment from your arborist that said that tree, TRO number 3, is not worth saving at this point.
Right.
Okay, no, I'll concur with that. I think also our landscape architect, Suzanne Nolan, was okay with that too.
Right.
I think the one thing, though, that I saw in here, John, was on your sheet number A-0.12, which is your proposed architectural site plan. There are several items on here in your bubble where you're making changes, the invasive species removal.
This here.
Yes.
Yep.
I think there are a couple of items in here. One, under identification of invasive species. It talks about barberry shrubs in the first comment, but then it goes into non-native invasive trees, it says non-native invasive trees or to be identified, including but not limited to Norway maples. And then farther down, removal of invasive species, it talks about non-native invasive tree seedlings. The other thing is that in Beth Evans' report, she only talked about the barberry. She didn't talk about these other
Right.
trees. So I think we need to get some,
So the issue there is that we went to Beth and asked her what her recommendation for removal was. Her recommendation for removal was different than Suzanne Nolan's recommendation. Suzanne Nolan had asked us to take both the shrubs and non-native saplings and possibly trees if they were there. We didn't know if there were any there. We didn't ask them. Beth that was not part of her recommendations. We went with the higher, what we assumed was the higher level, which was to meet what Susan requested as part of her scope. And that's why there's a differential between what Beth is recommending and what we're proposing.
okay. Well, I think you've got to rectify that, and I think probably if Beth Evans is your consultant on this and is the wetlands consultant on it, then you should just go with the barberry and not removing trees that are within.
Right, and we're willing to do, we were doing this because we were directed by the village's consultant to add that. So if we could just indicate that we will eliminate the tree
Right.
part, we can certainly do that.
And then the other thing too is under annual inspections, it says the area to be inspected on an annual basis for a period of 3 years. The removal activities outlined above are to be performed as necessary. I think also what I would like to see, and I'll open up to the other board members, is that some sort of report is submitted back to the planning board and to the planning board's landscape architect to make sure that if there are any recommendations or any comments from the board or from the landscape architect for the village, that those are incorporated into whatever is done on the property.
Is it specific as to who's doing the inspection? You said they inspected everything.
No, it isn't. I'm assuming that the owner is going to hire.
Is it somebody who knows what he's looking at, or?
Well, I think, do you go into that here?
There is sort of qualifications for the contract.
Contractor qualifications.
You know, there are people that would have to meet invasive species removal
Yeah, right.
qualifications.
Is there such a person?
Yeah, there's a course that you can take and get certification.
Which is right below that. I'll just read it. Contractor qualifications. The landscape contracting firm performing the removal and inspection services is to have a minimum of 3 years of experience in invasive species removal. The removal is to be performed under qualified supervision. Whose qualified supervision will be performed under? The crew leader is to be certified in invasive species.
Right, that's the certification is the NISMA certification, and the crew leader has to have that certification.
And you're saying there should be an annual report?
Yes,
for
and
the
that
3 years?
that information should be relayed back to the village so that we can confirm that we know who the person is or the firm is that is doing the work. And that is
So
also
would the
overseeing.
annual report be from this company to Susan Nolan or to?
I think it should come back to the planning board and then we can refer
Refer
to
to-
Suzanne
Okay.
for review.
Or whoever is.
Whoever is the landscape architect.
You're talking about the wetland. The annual report on.
It would just be, you know,
On the,
I'm just talking to Emily Klein.
Just
We
the annual
agreed to
inspection that we
do the
do, we're just
annual
gonna
to
send
go back
it,
for 3
right.
years, so they
We're
would
gonna have
write
to
a
do it
letter
anyway,
and
so
say.
whatever
"We've
they
done-"
do, we'll just
Yeah.
submit.
will be an annual report on the removal and the maintenance of the the maintenance of the removal of the invasive species, the barberry, within the wetland area. Any other comments from the board?
Crisp enough.
No? Any comments from anyone in the public? Doug, Ed, you okay? I think we're okay. So I think if you can make those changes, come back and we can wrap this up.
Is there any way we can do a conditional tonight, being that the things are very minor, we could agree to?
I mean, we agree that if you come back next time, we will give you the approval. But the resolution, we don't have a resolution prepared for you.
Okay. So just to be clear, there's a few other items, if we are going to be coming back, and if we can't press for that tonight, there are a few other items I just want to make sure I understand exactly what we're looking for in that case. So then
It's a good thing we are coming back.
Well, I'm sorry.
What you're just saying, is it's a good thing you are.
No, but if we put this over, if we did it offline, it wouldn't be an issue, but if it's gonna, I just want to make sure that there's nothing here that there's any question about. So the first item said on the civil drawings and the architectural site plans that the wall seemed to be inconsistent, that the civil drawings seem closer to the property line than our wall.
John, these are the ones we discussed when we discussed.
Right, are you okay with that?
I mean, well, we're okay with it. If the board wants to go through it, you can.
Right. I'm just worried about the potential, and this is, just because we've been in front of it for a long time, I just want to worry that there's something in this list that our response to it will not be acceptable to the board. And I just want to make sure that if we could quickly go, I don't mean to use up people's time, it's just that I just want to make sure that our response is acceptable to the board and that there isn't something that's open when we come back.
Well, then if you're going to put the wall right on the property line. Is that where it's supposed to be?
What John
Or is he
mentioned is that
moving
the
it
line
in?
weights are different between the two plans, so he's going to clarify that. And everything goes by the detail, which is on his drawings.
So there's a vertical wall detail that indicates an offset of approximately a foot.
Okay.
That's what governs. The Civil uses a different line. They use like one that looks like a rock wall, like a little bubble. So even though the center of the line is in the same place as our line, it looks different. I was going to not change the site plan, but just refer to the fact that the offset from the property line is indicated on the detail, and that's where we were directed to put the offset at the last comment we got was on that detail to indicate the offset.
Okay.
So,
I think as long as Doug and Ed are okay with it, then that shouldn't be an issue.
okay. Then, there's two items that are associated with the licensing agreement. One of them indicates that the licensing agreement indicates restoration and boundary markers are required. That would be item 2. And I think you're asking for the information that is indicated in the licensing agreement to be shown on our site plan, or at least indicated by note. What I was going to say is just have a simple note that mirrors what's in the licensing agreement that says any disturbed area that's not on our that's on the licensee's property would be restored. I think that's what that note is about. The other...
Well, what Doug is asking for is to identify what the extent is of the intrusion to someone else's property is going to be. Correct? Isn't that what you're...
You can show it on the plans.
You can show it on the plan.
So what we'll show on the plans is the extent to which we think the disturbed area would be. We would indicate that it's to be restored, and we would refer to the licensing agreement. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And, show the trees.
Show the proposed planting.
Yeah.
Okay, so the five trees that are indicated in the licensing agreement, the licensing agreement did refer to the planting plan, but it only referred to it as, to indicate what kind of species would be acceptable to the licensee.
You can show it on the plan.
Show some of the plan with the proposed trees.
Okay, is there any question about if we show them somewhere, is there anybody that's going to have a question, are they in the right place or the wrong place? That's what I'm concerned about, why I would review it tonight.
Once they're there, we'll let you know if they're in the right place or the wrong place.
Well, I just don't want it to extend another...
You can reach out to Susan, but that's why we want them on the plan, to make sure we...
Why don't you do that? Why don't you do that? Reach out to Suzanne, showing her the location of where they're going to be.
Okay. So
she
if we
should be
review
okay.
them with Suzanne before we submit that, then it
That
would
should be okay.
Okay. And the board, so the board doesn't want to review where those locations are. Okay. The invasive species thing we already looked at. Number 5 refers to a riprap dissipator that's it's in the It's in this, shown in this area here in the civil drawings. And there was a concern, this riprap dissipator in this area is potentially feeding this pocket wetlands that's here.
Mhm.
And the concern was that the stone wall that's indicated here may stop the runoff from making its way to the pocket wetlands. The reason we've held the dissipator back as far as we have is because the best practice, as we understand it, is for that water to come out far from the wetlands and have the opportunity to be treated on its way, on its overland flow, extending the overland flow. That's why we located it where we were, and that's one of the reasons that Beth Evans has indicated that there's no impact from that runoff to the pocket wetlands. What Doug was asking us was to confirm that the stone wall would not have any impact on ponding. Would a level, as from a letter from the civil or a note from the civil indicating that they've reviewed it and don't feel that the stone wall would limit the flow, is that sufficient?
And the dissipator, you said, is on the civil plans. That we had this issue with the previous applicant, that things are on different sets of plans. Should it all be on one, so you know where everything is?
Should be on the site plan.
Should be on the site plan and on the civil.
All the drainage is on the civil drawings.
That's really what we do typically, is we keep them
All the
separately.
drainage and stuff is on the civil.
Yeah.
So I just want to say, if there's any additional concern about that, is that something just Doug and I can?
Yes, your best bet would be to get the plans in prior to the deadline, so
Right.
that Doug and Ed can take a look at it, and if they have any comments, get back to you, so that if you can make changes if need be, before you get to this.
The dissipator is not going to be one of those concrete slabs. What are you using, riprap or
It's just a riprap, and it's in a low.
Stone?
stone?
Stone
Not
riprap?
not one of those concrete.
Right. And then, so the last comment is about Susan Nolan's comments. She had one about TR3, where she's just asking us to update, in the schedule, we didn't indicate that we needed to update that to say that it was dangerous. And then in the 5 trees is what she has.
Which we already discussed. Okay?
All right, thank you.
Got it? Good, thanks. Next item is 2018-14, 99 Bracebridge Lane, Calvin and Fury.
John Malone, First Malone Architecture, representing Calvin and Fury. So this is our first submission for this project, so I would ask the board, would you like me to go through a summary of the project? Since
Yes.
that's typical? Okay. So the project is for a addition to an existing house, which I think for people living in Irvington, many will be familiar with. It's a small modern house built in the 60s, or actually a little earlier than that, and has a barn building that is right on the aqueduct, sort of a red barn building. The project is to expand the existing house. So the lot is encumbered by the aqueduct buffer. It's a very narrow lot to start out with. So the 30-foot setback for the buffer really limits the area to which you can add to this house. The house is a very small house. The portion of the house that's closest to the aqueduct, if you remember, is a one-story portion of the house. and then the two-story is back here behind the setback line. So the area that we've located for the addition, and again, the goal also was to limit and reuse as much of the existing house as possible and just add the additional space to it. So the area that we're focused on for the addition is outside of the aqueduct buffer and inside the side yard setback. The other thing to note about this location is that because of the slope and the way that the site, the grade on the existing site, is that this two-story addition on this side is actually one story. So the area with the entry that's located right here, you're entering on the second floor. So that reduces the volume of the house from the driveway side, at least, and the house is in scale in terms of its overall height with the existing building. Also on the site, the other changes that are being proposed is there's a small retaining wall area here that allows for a little garbage enclosure, and then there's retaining in this area where there already is retaining in this area, but there's revision to existing retaining as the slope goes down there. The driveway, which is a gravel driveway, is shown expanded, so there's a little bit more gravel driveway in this area to allow the potential for a car to park near the house and have another car pass. The vehicular access, again, because of the narrowness of the site, is a very difficult site, so we're just trying to make some minor improvements to help cars move around in there. If one car can pass, the other one can do the T-turn to get out the other side. What's shown here, we should go back one. There are a lot of tree removals indicated in here. This area, the house, because it's being built into the hillside, there's a bunch of Norway maples and I think some larger red oaks that are already in a location to threaten the existing house that are on the hillside. So those are being shown pulled out, and there's some new mitigating plantings shown on that area. We can go back just because there were comments on the tree clearance. So go back to the tree removal. The arborist, we have scheduled an arborist to come and review the condition of the trees that we're proposing to pull out. We're just having trouble getting some to the site. We're actually switching who we're using. But you see there's a cluster of trees in this area that's on a slope. The proposed improvements are in this area. And again, some of these trees are quite large and hillside leaning already, so that's part of the reason to get rid of them. And then these other trees are related to, stormwater system, and then just sort of opening up the rear yard. That's what we're planning to do there. There are two trees that are indicated removed on the aqueduct property. So we have been in conversation with Stephen Oakes, which manages that portion of the aqueduct, and we're talking to him about negotiations to potentially take those down and do other improvements in their place. So we would, obviously, if we're showing them there for your information. I'm not sure if it has to be part of this application.
Part of the site plan.
Right. It's work that could be done in concert. My feeling is, though, honestly, to complete this negotiation may take longer. It may mean Albany. It may be something that we pull out and that something is done in the future, because just to coordinate that with this project may be too difficult. This is the existing house. Just for your information, you see on the ground level the main entry is this way. There's a small spiral staircase that is the tightest spiral staircase that people make. It's like a 5-foot, so the only access to the second floor right now is this spiral staircase. The living room is a great room. We're keeping that in place. There's a very small kitchen and a downstairs bedroom. The plan is to make this more of a eating, a kitchen dining area. Upstairs, the 3 bedrooms that are indicated there, we're pretty much keeping those in place. Donna is a painter and is using one as a studio. So they may not all have bedroom function, but they would be maintained as is. And if you notice, the existing house. It's a combination of a T111 wood siding and some painted brick. It has a reference right through here where the existing stairs, if you notice from walking on the aqueduct, where it has a lot of glass right in that area, and it's sort of this vertical reference to the vertical circulation in the existing house. Part of our, I just mentioned that because part of our strategy is to replace the main vertical circulation because it is so tight, and try to do something that would be more functional. And we're trying to make a reference to that verticality in the tower that we're adding in that area. So this is the proposed plan, kitchen in this area, dining. The existing windows around this area are going to stay the same. There's going to be some modification associated with the kitchen. And on the ground level, there's a new office bedroom that can also act as a mother-in-law suite on that level. So the bathroom opens both ways, and this acts as the powder room. On the second level, you see the bedrooms are remaining, and there's a new master bedroom suite with its own bathroom and closets. The size of these rooms, just for reference, this is like a 12 by 14 room. It's not a very large master. Don and Tracy aren't looking for a lot of space. It's more about the separation and the access to closets in their own bathroom. Oh, in this area, this is the new tower that would have the stair tower that would have the access on the upper level. This is where the driveway was coming down on the side, so you'd have access on the second floor level. And then down at the lower level, this whole line is below grade. So this whole back wall is actually below grade. It has access on this side and access there. The roof plan, you see, we're trying to make reference to this high roof and do a similar roof over here, and then in the tower has the stair tower has its own little so this is the existing entry with the stair behind it that's being replaced by the stair in this location. Again, the changes here are limited to some window changes. Here you can see the elevation as you come down the driveway. So you see it appears as a one-story house as you approach. On the, this is the northern-facing facade. So again, the language of the existing house is going to be repeated in this small addition here in terms of finishes and windows. And then here, again, this is the facade that faces the aqueduct. The new tower move is, again, back from the aqueduct, about 30 feet back. This is a little bit, this tower is not going to appear. This is a flat drawing, in perspective. When you're on the thing, you're not really going to see it that way. But the language of this house is going to be similar to the existing house. In terms of the comments that we received from Han, there were the first few comments were related to requests for variances because we are above coverage and floor area ratio. You've requested scale information to comparing this house to the adjacent houses, which we can give you in a, I'm assuming you want the typical neighborhood analysis that we provide for that. In terms of view preservation district, we would typically do only views that would be from the east side of the house looking towards the river. So what we would be looking at would be, potential impacts. My feeling is that there's not a lot of potential view impact there because the hill goes up so quickly. I'll try to pick a few points along the driveway. Certainly from Broadway and beyond, there's no access to view this house, and there won't be. So I'll look for stuff that's going to be, it's going to be private property
Right.
locations.
You have to look at the houses that are directly to the east of you.
Right.
That
And the one to the east is offset to the south. Really, the area where this house, where the impact would be along the driveway, and the driveway really just accesses this house. But I'll show you that way. You'll see that in the layout. Other than that, we have about 11 or 12 civil-related stuff, and I think there was some question about. It seems like the question that I'm seeing, the concern that I'm seeing from Doug is that the coverage calculation that we're showing may be not showing things like air conditioners and some other walkways, so we'll confirm that the coverage that we're actually showing here is accurate. So, is there any other questions?
What are your plans for the garage? Are you going to leave it? I mean, because it's... It's an old horse and buggy.
Right, well, the garage right now, we have an application in front of a building permit request to try to repair the garage as a studio for Don's work. That is been sent to the ZBA. We didn't realize it had to go to the ZBA, but it's a use thing. Ed interpreted it as a home occupation, so we have to get a confirmation that it's okay to do that. We've had a structural engineer in there since, and we've done some selective demo to see the condition of the building. The building's not in as good a shape as we had hoped, so we're sort of in a mode right now where we're pursuing the variance to confirm that we can renovate it, and then we'll see what the cost is associated with renovating it. That's where we are right now.
What's it been used for? Is it been used for anything over the years, or it's storage?
It's old. I mean, it was a barn when Don did the selective demo. You know, there was hay from 100 years ago stuffed between the boards. There was farm implements and tools that were associated with making. I think it was definitely designed as an agricultural building, and it was on a larger footprint. It went further to the south by another 30 feet, and it has a few different, part of the issue with it, and this is off topic, but part of the issue is over the years, the front edge, the east edge of it has been partially buried as the grade has been brought up, and it's led to a lot of rot along the edge of that building and a lot of failure. But it's a sweet building, and we're trying to save it.
The barn, it's 100% in the buffer zone. Has that ever been legalized? I presume it's not, never was.
Farm predates our code.
And I have another question. You have half part of this project that we're not seeing is in the zoning board, and they're not seeing what we're seeing. I have a problem with that.
Well, the renovation.
We're not seeing what you're doing to the barn. It's over at the zoning board.
Well, the renovation.
That's half a thing to look at.
It's not. The renovation of the barn was just a building permit. Only required a building permit because it was related to the renovation of a barn. It didn't need site plan approval, and we were trying to do it as an initial phase.
It's going to be looked at. It's going to be seen.
Well, and it would have ARB approval, and it actually has ARB approval.
What about our approval?
Well, what do you do? Well, what is the barn going to be used as?
A studio, like a workspace for. It's going to be approximately the same building that's
then
there
you'll
now.
have viewings once a month, and people will be coming in from someplace.
No. But
How
that's.
do we know that?
Well, that's what's going to be reviewed with the zoning board of appeals, right? So that's.
Yeah, on that one, let me just say, and you
Mary,
should-
maybe we should take the microphone.
John, just to be aware, there is a public hearing on Monday before the before the Board of Trustees for changes to the home occupation law that will definitely, if it's passed, will definitely affect this. So pay attention to it. It may or may not be that a variance is required. Probably a variance isn't required, but maybe something else will be just so. So you should get a look at the law. It was announced and it's been available online, and then the public hearing is on Monday on that.
Right, and so we were planning to attend that, and, just Caesar, for your information, the public law that's being proposed would basically mean that we wouldn't need home occupation variance for this. The other thing is the use, and I don't know if it's appropriate to get into this, the use is more like a home office or a home studio. It's not intended to be
Gallery.
You got some of this project in the zoning board, and the bulk of it here.
I mean,
I think we should be in touch with the zoning board.
I have other
So
questions
there-
aside.
Sure.
but what is your concern, but I would stay on, what is your concern about?
The concern is that if something is over there and something is over here, it should be the whole package that we look at. I mean, I don't know what's that barn, what are you going to do with the barn?
Well, if the barn was to be expanded, or if the barn was to change shape in any way, it would be in front of you.
Well, we don't know that until it's in front of us.
But it's not in front of you because it's not proposed to do that, though. That's what I'm saying. I'm not trying to be difficult on it, but the only reason it's not included in this is
Well, you
because it's
said
an.
there's major structural issues. You may have to change the whole way it looks. I don't know.
Right, and it would have to go to ARB in order to get approval for that. I'm just saying that there is a sort of a different responsibility for the various
Well,
reviews.
but I think the ZBA should be aware of what's before us and vice versa, so that we understand what's supposed to happen, or what's proposed to happen on site.
Right. I don't have an issue with that, and just so you know, we were interpreting the code differently than Ed. We was assuming that it was just a home office use, and that it didn't require ZBA approval. So the fact, we submitted for a building permit, got ARB approval, and then were directed to ZBA, right? So this is not something that if we knew that both things were in ZBA, we may have made different decisions on that.
This is a very large project for that size property, and I think that we would like to see everything that's going on that piece of property,
Okay,
or potentially going on.
okay.
In addition, part of the application is widening the road or the access driveway
Right.
from what to what?
It was
From 8 feet to 10 feet? And that's an easement, correct?
It would not, it's a, that portion, the easement portion is not being adjusted. It's near the house.
That's a driveway from Broadway, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a driveway from Broadway. We're not proposing any changes to that.
It's a pretty narrow path.
Yes.
I thought I saw on the plan that it was being expanded to 10 feet.
This,
Not that set of plans. No,
okay.
it's the original, the second page, or the first page of drawings. I thought I saw on there going to 10 feet. Maybe it was an illusion.
This is the survey that's showing that there's a 10-foot easement associated with the existing driveway. We're not proposing any changes to
It is a
the...
10-foot easement, or you're expanding the easement from
There's a
8
10,
to
no,
10?
there's a 10-foot wide easement for egress and ingress into the property. So
But the full 10-foot is not in use now?
it looks like it mostly is to me. I mean, I don't see an area where it's less than 10 feet. You can see that the easement lines and the driveway lines are both shown in the survey.
I thought there was a difference. I'm sorry.
No, it's no problem. It's just, I think it's just, that's the only, and we're not proposing any changes outside of our property line.
And also, I noticed there's a sewer line. Do you know where it is?
The sewer line is out in the...
In the aqueduct?
Yeah.
And how does the sewage from the property get there?
There's a little vent here, and there's a connection from that vent point.
Is there a manhole? The manhole is not shown on the plans.
The manhole is back here. There's not a manhole associated with the connection. There's a manhole.
I don't know. When I used to do these things, there used to be a manhole. There's usually a manhole when there's a connection.
In this case, we can't find any evidence.
But how do you know there's a connection?
Well, the vent location and the...
But there's no manhole.
Right. I mean,
So a lot of the time, they don't go into the manholes, it goes right into the line.
That's not very good engineering.
No.
It's more common in the 70s than we thought.
Yeah, even today, it's
Which way does it flow? Does it flow towards Meadowbrook Road?
I think,
And-
I'm going to make an assumption on that.
And the sewer that it flows to is in the aqueduct easement?
Or Phil, yeah.
oh, nice.
Is it in the
Just
aqueduct?
used to be a river line to New York City.
Can you have Jim Industry take a look at that?
I mean, literally, there's a lot of utilities actually in the aqueduct. Is this in the aqueduct or in the easement of the aqueduct?
I don't know.
The sewer's actually located in the aqueduct.
Can you go, just have Jim Industry take a look at it?
Yeah, just tell us what it is.
Yeah, tell us what it is.
As long as we're on the aqueduct, there's also a couple of drainage, or not drainage, but water retention. Well, one retention pond right at the bottom and back of the garage. They're on each side of the garage.
Do you mean like a swale?
No,
No.
it's a bucket.
Oh.
Right there. Holding water that's coming off the roof.
Oh, it's collecting water for
Uh-huh.
planting or something, or for water?
You can't lift it.
Right, okay. Okay, I think Don may be using roof water to water gardens or something like that.
Is that why there's a cistern proposed?
Yes, the cistern, there is a cistern being proposed, a below-ground cistern that would be used to water a vegetable garden, to reuse the wet rainwater.
Well, one of them isn't being collected for anything, it's just flowing into the aqueduct.
One of the
One
roof,
of the leaders.
one of the roof leaders, yes. The existing leaders on the barn are doing what they've always done, which is just go into the ground, yeah.
Yeah, you have a stormwater treatment system. Is that going to work? Is that isn't that a swale next to the, right there? In a low spot in front of the aqueduct?
There's, my recollection of the aqueduct is there's basically swales on both, the aqueduct is raised, and there's probably water collecting on both sides of the aqueduct. There's a raised area here, so the water, I think, is collecting both on this side and on that side, where these trees
But
are.
you're putting all the new drainage into that system that's in the low spot.
Well, no, the drainage is an infiltration system that's below grade.
I
So,
know, but it's in a low spot.
Yeah, I mean, is there, would that,
It's set back a little bit from there, but, I mean,
Did they do their soil testing?
we have a lot of questions on the drainage,
Okay.
you know.
Right.
There's still there's a lot of questions on the drainage. They did do soil testing. you
Well,
know.
the infrastructure seems to be questionable here, between the sewers and the drainage, and the bond that we don't see. I don't see us.
I think those issues have to be addressed.
so there's one thing that Pat mentioned is communication between your board and the ZBA to indicate that this is in front of you. When we resubmit, because we're going to pick, we didn't get a comment about the barn in Han. Would you like us to submit the proposal for the barn that's been
Before the
approved by,
ZBA?
yeah, that's been approved by the ARB and is in front of the ZBA? We can certainly do that.
Since it's in the buffer zone, the bond, are they allowed to do anything different than the current footprint of what's there? Anybody know that answer?
You,
I think
They're
there's
allowed
not,
to maintain it.
yeah,
yeah, I don't.
there's not supposed to be an increase
Although-
in the structure within 30 feet of the Old Croton Aqueduct Trail.
When you say increase in the structure, is that floor area or
Anything.
Anything.
anything?
Yeah, you couldn't add a dormer, you couldn't expand the building in any way, you can
What
maintain
about
the building.
the steps and walls around it?
What does it say? It's structure, I think it says structure, and if you define structure as both
It's different,
steps.
it's a little different than the Broadway buffer, so
Yeah, but it says there can't be any
it
structure.
says structures. It doesn't say intrusion, like, it does not Broadway buffer.
And what would be the restriction of the studio suddenly becoming a art show every week?
Yeah,
I think that becomes a zoning issue.
yeah, that wouldn't be affected by the equinox fossil rules, as long as the building's not changing.
Right. And just so you know, there's no,
Who would, that's a zoning board issue.
That's not a zoning board issue. He's only before the zoning board on the use, whether he can use that as for a home occupation, which is probably going to be mooted out by the new law.
Right.
So they're not before the zoning board for any kind of area variances. It's-
Well, there's a difference between running a business, is there a difference between running a business and having a studio? I mean, if you have an art studio, every art studio I've seen out in Bridgehampton has a show.
Well, they have to meet whatever the requirements are for a home occupation.
right, there are limits on,
Right now there's limits, but the whole law is changing. The
Right.
law's going to be changed.
I don't know, my
No
estimation
doubt
is
within a month.
you don't have a studio unless you're going to have a show.
yeah, I think that's probably inaccurate. I think this is for actually doing work in it. It's not for, there isn't capacity on the site to bring cars into it. There's no,
You can walk up the aqueduct.
you could, but it's just not the intention of what the building is for, and the building hasn't been designed to have studio shows. It's simply a place where someone wants to, it's like if somebody had a tool shed and they wanted to, work on historic tools and fix them. It's the same kind of thing. It's not something nefarious that's intending to hide some kind of high-impact, difficult thing. That's not what the intent was. And one of the things that's happening is right now the building is in a position, is in a situation of significant decay, and what we want to do with buildings like this is we want to put them back into some use that allows people to, put investment into them and keep them in place and, keep them working rather than have them fall into the earth, which is what this was on the path to do. That's my soapbox.
Any other comments?
Yeah, will you
Yeah,
raise the
I
street
did,
thing?
yeah. I mean, I think
What about the trees?
the first comment I would have is, if you go back to the 2003 master plan, which was adopted by the board, talks on page 66 about scenic corridors. It says, among the recognized scenic corridors in Irvington are Broadway, Cyrus Field Road, and the Old Croton Aqueduct Trail. These corridors are characterized by mature tree canopies, stone walls, hedgerows, and wooded areas along certain stretches of road. Following the recommendations of the 1988 Land Use Plan, buffers were established along these corridors to protect their scenic qualities. These buffers serve an important role in protecting the scenic value of the corridors. At hearings on the plan, residents expressed interest in deepening the buffers for new subdivisions, particularly along Broadway and the aqueduct corridors, to preserve the natural beauty, vistas, and spaciousness afforded along the corridors. Now, when I went back and looked at the plan, my calculations showed that you're proposing to take 194 inches of trees on the property. 46 inches of those trees are actually on the Old Croton Aqueduct property, not even on the applicant's property. Okay? 40 inches of the trees that are proposed are shown, that are actually in the Broadway buffer. I'm sorry, in the Old Croton Aqueduct buffer. So I went out there, I took pictures, I walked through that whole area. I mean, there is a canopy of trees from that house going north along the Broadway, along the Old Croton Aqueduct Trail. I think you have to show, but first of all, I don't understand, why are you proposing to take down trees that aren't even on your property?
Actually, can I speak?
Sure.
Yeah, so the
You need the microphone.
my name is Gordon Fury. I'm one of the owners, along with my wife. So the backyard is very, very dark. Nothing grows back there except weeds. In the wintertime, it's mud. And plus, we're getting a lot of water coming down the driveway and from that hillside. So we're trying to be able to turn that backyard into something that people walking on the aqueduct would enjoy, as well as something we would enjoy, by taking out weed trees, taking out sick trees, and putting in native trees, as well as shrubbery. So sunlight it would be so valuable back there, and that's what we're trying to do. We're actually trying to improve that whole area, shrubbery along the fence. Have I left anything out?
Yeah.
I mean, it's right now it's wasted space. And even with the trees that we're going to leave provide huge canopies already, and they'll still be there.
Well,
Right,
number one,
you have to remember that that property was rented for a really long time, and it wasn't taken care of. So everything's very overgrown.
yeah,
Sorry.
but when I walk down that trailway, from this property going north, there is a tree canopy over the Old Croton Aqueduct. From this property to the property directly north of it on the same side of the aqueduct, and to the two properties on the west side of the aqueduct. And I think
Not directly across, you're saying over.
there's the one house just south that we approved several years ago, which if you go out there, you'll see there's a staggered row of evergreens that we required the owners to plant there, and which eventually will be substantially high and will block out that house. I mean, the idea of it is the idea of the buffer is to preserve a scenic corridor and an open space field. This is a state park. And to take down all these trees, and to even take down trees that are on the state parkland, seems counterintuitive to me as to being consistent with either the master plan or what a park is supposed to be. And again, I think those trees add to the canopy. And you're going to have to get an arborist out there and show us why these trees have to be taken down. None of these trees appear to be in any of the area where you're doing any of the work.
The only ones that I would say that are problematic for us in terms of the actual building are the ones on the slope here. These removals here have more to do with opening up the backyard and lot. So the area that I think you have concern about, which is the buffer area, these are not related to, they're not, I mean, the arborist, we haven't had the arborist yet look at these. I do think they're closeness to the existing house could potentially, depending on their condition, would be problematic. If you have a large canopy tree, and if there's something structurally wrong with it that's close to the house, that could be an argument for its removal. In addition to, Don's argument right now is related to light to the backyard, getting southern and western light to the backyard.
But John, even those trees in that copse right at the head of the driveway, even those trees are really basically outside of the area where you intend to construct the addition. And maybe you have to take down one or two of those trees, but I don't know that you have to take down all those trees. And again, you've got to show what's the condition. We haven't any information other than the size of those trees as to what types of trees they are, what's the condition of them, and whether they really need to come down. And in addition to, what you're proposing to do, while it is slightly outside the old Croton Aqueduct buffer, you are proposing to expand the size of that house visible from the old Croton Aqueduct. And what I see in your plans is you want to take out those trees and put in shrubs that, according to your landscape plan, will grow to be 5 feet tall. And then you're going to put in a 2.5-story clear story addition on the property, which is going to be even more visible from the old Croton Aqueduct. So I don't see this project as being in keeping with consistent with what is in the master plan from 2003, which is still being, which is still in place even in 2018. So I think you really have a lot of homework to do here to show us why what you're proposing to do here meets the regulations and the recommendations in the 2003 master plan.
And then, but when you say the project, you mean the tree removal portion of the project?
Not the tree removal. I think the size of the addition that you want to put on is going to be more visible from the aqueduct now than what's there now. You want to put, you're showing, if you go to your elevations, you're showing a clear story that's a half-story higher than what's out there now.
Right.
Why? Why do you need a clear story there? If there's not, if you're saying it's a clear story and there's going to be no floor space in there, why do you need to go up higher than the existing house?
I think the goal was to provide something as you come down the driveway, and then also, the location of that is not pinned at the end of the aqueduct. It's set back on the back corner of the.
Understood, but your whole addition is parallel to the old Croton Aqueduct, so it means more of the addition is going to be visible in addition to your clear story, which is above the existing roof line.
From the aqueduct here, the clear story may be slightly, that might be visible, but I'm not sure that the impact is the same as what's shown here. I mean, we could develop more detail, but I think really what you're going to be seeing as you approach is the roof line and the existing roof line.
I don't agree with you, because when you start telling me that you're going to take out those trees that are on the OCA's property and on the applicant's property, it's going to be much more visible than what it is now.
Okay.
You're going to see it as you're walking south, you're going to be looking right at it, and as you're looking north, you're definitely going to be looking at it because there's going to be nothing there to shield it. And I think that is counterproductive to what the idea of a buffer was.
So we
for the
can
OCA.
take some images in addition to the site, the youth preservation stuff that we do. It sounds like we should also, in order to address it, because this comment isn't on here either, to address the comment about the master plan, we, typically if we ask for a buffer incursion in front of the zoning board, we would put together a visual impact that would show what the impact of the work in the buffer would be. Even though we're not providing additional work in the buffer here, we can do a similar one where, because you look, we take pictures of it just so we can talk about something in a realistic way.
Sure, but I think
And
if you-
I understand
if
about
you-
the tree removals. I'm trying to separate the concern about the tree removals and the buffering from the house, just to make sure that I clear, because what I'm hearing from you, Pat, is that the concern, if you have the mature trees in the location, and the aqueduct tree removals are not by any means a sure thing. I mean, it's like been an initial conversation with the aqueduct. They may simply say no. So the likelihood of removing the large caliper trees in the aqueduct is probably a long shot. We don't have the arborists review of them yet, but they are uncomfortably close to the house. So whatever, if those were still in place, it's going to be a very different view of the house than if they were taken down.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a 26-inch tree that's on the OCA's property.
Right.
So that tree has been there for quite a long time.
Right.
Probably predates the house, which was built in the 1960s. So I think to start taking down those trees, I think you're going to have to go a long way to prove to me that those trees need to come down. Because again, the idea of the OCA buffer was to preserve the buffer from the trailway for people walking along the trailway, looking off the trailway. You want to maintain that open space feel, that natural feel. You don't want to have buildings right on top of you. Even though this building is right on top of you right now, it's still, there are trees in that yard and on the OCA property, which somewhat shield it when you walk through there. And again, you have that canopy, which goes north from this house north along the trailway, which gives some relief to people walking along the trailway so they're not out in the sun all the time. And to start taking down those trees, to open it up for the owner's property, or maybe you can look at certain trees farther back from this, from the old Croton Aqueduct Trailway. But I don't see it
Right.
taking down the trees right
So
along the trailway.
so then I think what I'm understanding, just want to reiterate, to clarify, is that, again, the trees that would be of greater concern in terms of your reading of the master plan are obviously the trees that are along here, but then also the trees that are being proposed here now.
Correct.
Trees up front, too.
The trees.
The trees up front, again, I think you need to show why you have to take down all those trees. Again, because I don't see them as being in, while you've outlined the entire lot as the area of disturbance, when you look at Hudson Engineering's plan, none of those trees are in the disturbance area.
Well, these, again, we haven't been able to get the arborists out to the site. When you, basically, this is a 12-foot retaining situation in terms of where the building is shown here, so that the trees, they lose structural value, and when they're leaning, if the canopy is leaning this way towards the open space, which is what it is, there may be an argument why, similar to TR 03 that we just looked, in the previous one, there's probably, I'm just bringing that up because I think that's probably why, and this is why we were showing this. Whether it needs to be as aggressive as what's shown is a different question.
Well, also to the tree to the south of that, right along the east property line there, why is that tree being taken out?
That one done, I'm not quite sure what the issue was.
And again, that's why you're taking out all these trees on the property with no rationale for them.
Right, and again, this was our initial, this is our initial submission, so it's good to get this information.
No rationale.
I didn't
You
agree
said
with
that.
that. There is a rationale, a rationale that you guys don't feels as important as other rationales for protecting them. So
I think
it's not like-
possibly somewhere along the line,
Yeah.
it might be beneficial for us to go out and take a look at the site, so we get a feel for what you're talking about. And I think we should do that after your arborist comes back and tells us
Yeah.
what trees really are in bad condition and need to come out,
Right.
and what trees.
Yeah, I worry that, part of what we're talking about today, and without an arborist's opinion, it's not a reasonable thing to be making arguments about. This was more a description of what the intent was. The goal was to actually get the comment. This was our first submission, and that's what we got.
Right. Okay. I think we have to open it up to the public too, because I don't want to take all the time here. So any comments from anyone in the public on this matter?
I'm just concerned about the access to it.
Excuse me, sir, would you mind coming up and taking the microphone and state your name and address?
Sir. Now, I live at 2 Meadowbrook Road. I was concerned about the use of the barn, and the access to that, because there'd be a lot of parking on Meadowbrook for people to go to the workshop.
Yeah, again, the intent is not for it to be open to the public. It's just a home office is a better way to think about it.
Yeah, but when the house was for sale, and the real estate agent put into the details of the house that the best way to get there is to park on Meadowbrook and walk up to Aqueduct.
Okay.
Well, that's one of our concerns, the parking.
Right. Well, I mean, yeah, I don't think that the proposed,
Okay.
yeah, it is the best way to get there.
And
If you're going down the driveway, it's definitely the best way to get there.
and also, just a technical question, does the size of the barn affect the FAR calculations?
It's included in the FAR, yes.
It is?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's wasn't there, the addition to the house.
How many levels is the barn? How many, is it 3 levels?
It is, a basement, a main level,
Basement
and an
and
attic.
is an
Yes.
upper-
What's being proposed in the thing that was in front of the ARB is to remove some of the attic so that there was a higher ceiling inside, but not change the shape of it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
So,
Mark Yellowland. I just wanted to say from an arborist perspective, there's another alternative from removal for trees, and of course that's, reasoned, careful pruning, especially for if the trees haven't been taken care of for a while. You can certainly adjust, unbalanced weight loads and everything else, and still maintain quite a bit of healthy canopy.
Thank you. Any other comments? Ed, Doug, you have any comments on this? Any other comments from the board members on this matter? No? Okay, well, I think you've heard our comments then and from the public, so I think you should go back and get the arborist report and let's see what that says, and also address Caesar's comments and some of the other comments. And we'll take it from there.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, John. I can send an email to Mr. Clark and then tell him that this is the matter.
We had an aside, and Pat is going to send a note over to Clark over at zoning, and we're going to request a note from zoning to us in regards to the other half of the project.
And the last item is 2018-13, Kevin and Jessica Kearns, 28 Matheson Park.
First, show me last. Oh, you were first here and last.
My name is Ed Jamola, we're architects and planners. We're representing the owner tonight. The builder is here, Adam West. What we're showing...
Adam West?
Adam West.
That's me on the...
Batman. Reincarnated. In terms of the comments, we have to go over everything.
You're getting too far away from the mic.
We have a lot to do with the comments we have. I just want to briefly explain, the idea here was to renovate the house, the new kitchen, scraping floors, repainting, modernizing, doing some electric stuff because it is an older house.
That's all
Interior.
permit.
All right, well, that's, so, and then we got involved with replacing some windows here in kind at the rear. And this, we have some photos of it. This is actually an existing, you want to call it a conservatory, a sunroom, which had screens, and at one time it might have had storms. So we were taking that into play now and trying to get something done before the next winter. Let me just get, this is probably easier.
Yeah, I'm easier to see that.
This, I don't know if the public wants to see it, but this we could pass around. I have that on the plan here also.
Mr. Jamola, this is what exists now, right, on these photographs? This is
Yes, it
what's
is.
there now.
That's what we're trying to show. So this structure with the pergolas and actually had screening exists now. And what we were trying to do was take the structure. It has a flagstone patio and steps out the back. Obviously landscaping along the rear. And basically infill this is what we're trying to show here. New glass and keeping the structural part of it intact. Therefore, enclosing it and making it, a pleasant place to sit if it's raining or if it's in the summer. The next step was to,
I'm sorry, enclosing it with glass?
yes, yes.
So that you're not, the existing view
These are-
panels will stay the same?
Correct. Right. New doors, new glass, and all these items. So we're not expanding it, raising it.
What's the roof look like?
The roof would be also panels and some translucent, and some of it might be metal, I'm not sure, to keep the water out, what we'd have to do. And
Would it be a flat roof?
Well, our intention right now is an EPDM roof?
Yeah.
Would it be a flat roof?
Yes.
Yes, well, actually, it's not flat now, it actually has some pitch, so we would follow that.
Slight pitch,
Yes,
but it's
yes.
relatively flat.
Right.
It's following the existing.
Right. And I'm not sure if there were going to be some skylights popped into it, but structurally it's sound, beefing that up, waterproofing this and running whatever the roofing is up under the siding towards the back, which you can see here, this would be the structure here. This outside porch now exists, which is on the left side of the house, and the extensive part of what we were trying to do was, and this might make sense to break this up in another proposal or another phase, because this is going to trigger a variance. So if we could work on the whole thing all at once, but this, depending on how fast that goes, if we get the variance, it might have to get held over and, to build that into the winter. This would be flagstone. They might be able to build it out of pervious stones that they have now. That is, it's not as, impervious a surface. They have these pervious pavers. They have a lot of different items. It could also be grass. So this right now, we'd like to get as much as we can and let this not hold up everything we're doing, but get it into works and maybe jointly do the variance that's required with this in conjunction with all the items on the site plan we have to do. We have to figure in all the pads that were there. I mean, this we got this morning, went through it, so we will address this for whenever the next meeting is. We just want to let the board know that this is something the owners would like to do, but it may not happen as fast as the rest of this.
Ed and Doug and Mary, do they need a variance for enclosing the,
You need a variance for enclosing the sun porch. The sun porch with screens is not FAR. Once you put the glass on, it becomes FAR. Oh, so you're on the right path. Let's get it all together.
Okay, may I?
Sure.
This is Adam
Yes.
with the builder.
Adam,
It has,
Take the microphone, please.
my only comment I would make is that right now it has a solid masonry floor. So that doesn't matter?
Coverage, we're doing floor area ratio.
Okay.
Coverage doesn't, that
I thought
project is,
it was coverage.
no, it's two separate issues.
Okay.
You're on the right path, it's just not gonna be in the time frame you want, but work through the coverage. You only have 1 week to get the submission into the next planning board meeting, because we pushed a week away. It doesn't hurt you to come in September 1st with a perfect application. You're welcome to go to see Doug in his office and resolve all the issues once you get close also. Don't wait till the last minute to submit it.
Okay.
All right? So my suggestion to you is work very hard and being here for the September submission and having Doug look at it 1 or 2 times before that, so that we get to the zoning board at the end of September, and then ARB 1st of October, and you're there.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say send it to me as soon as you can. Why don't you revise it, get me to go through it and send it to us and give you a call and go through it.
Yes, well, we're going to have to get, hopefully the same survey. We had 3 different surveys, and I believe we have one that's in scale now, so we'll use that, but we're going to have to get a surveyor to come back, because the trees were not done at the time. They did a current survey of everything except trees.
but yeah, I think you should take in everything that the owners want
Why don't you,
propose to do, so you get this done all at once. You're gonna have to go to the ZBA for enclosing that porch, so you might as well do everything and go to the ZBA once.
You can mark the trees on your site plan. We only need the trees that are in the construction area. So if you draw your construction limits properly, you can mark the trees on the plan. This is a very small project.
Right.
Okay.
So it's not as involved as some of the ones you might have heard.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you think you can mark the trees in the construction area on your site plan, you need to create a site plan. You didn't really have a site plan, you use it in the survey.
Yes.
If you create a site plan, put the location of the trees on them, put tree protection if they're in the construction limits to the canopy, I think you're in good shape.
Okay, I get that. I mean, we could, pull 2 points from corners.
Yeah.
We'll get it pretty accurate. Okay.
And like I said, I wouldn't rush to try to get it in 1 week. I would work with Doug for the next 3 weeks, 4 weeks.
I appreciate that. I may not, but I appreciate it.
I don't see a difference for
You're not
you.
losing any time.
You're not losing any time.
Yeah, okay,
Okay.
Tell your
Actually,
client
you're
that,
you're
they
getting
wouldn't
it
get
right.
approval next month, yeah.
Yeah.
okay.
And we can't get you to the ZBA next month. So,
I'm in agreement with everything. I just got to sit down with Doug, and that'll help immensely.
If there's an access road for the construction of whatever you're doing.
Yeah, how we get access back to the backyard, show that.
Access road has a tree issue, you have to show that too.
There's actually gates off the driveway.
But there's an existing gravel driveway around the side of the house?
No,
Come
this,
through?
if you can see this here,
Yep.
this is the parking area of the garage. Right here, there's fences that were used as access on grass to the pool equipment in the pool, so you can only get back there.
But I'm just saying, in that area of access,
show
to
that.
show if there's any trees in the back. You may
Okay,
have-
yeah,
You may have to put
Understood.
Some tree protection.
tree protection, temporary protection for that access road.
Gotcha.
Yes, we did ask them for that also first.
I think that was on your list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we appreciate your comments, and we'll
Sure. Any other comments?
endeavor to get it better.
No? Yeah, I think if you take care of all those items, you won't have a problem. This board, I don't think there's an issue.
Yeah.
Or anybody else. Yeah.
thank
Okay.
Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Adjourn.
All in favor? Aye.